All right, NBA live stream of consciousness, rocking with you on Saturday. Beautiful day out here on the West Coast. I think it's like 70 something degrees. Not a beautiful day in Cleveland, snowing. Listen to my rant about All-Star games being in Cleveland, but there's some NBA news to talk about. LeBron regards Thunder's GM Presti as the MVP. Thunder GM Presti, the MVP. The MVP over there is Sam Presti. He's the MVP, said LeBron. I mean, Josh Giddey is great, but Sam Presti, I don't understand this guy's eye for talent. He drafted Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, Jeff Green, Serge Ibaka, Reggie Jackson, Josh Giddey. The list goes on and on. This guy's pretty damn good. LeBron also said, my type of guy, Les Snead, when he wore a Fuck Them Picks t-shirt to the parade. People were saying that this is LeBron being passive aggressive towards Rob Pelinka. Lakers didn't do anything at the trade deadline. I read that was more financially motivated than it was actually about, saving picks and looking towards the future, which is kind of interesting because, you have the Lakers, you have this gold standard team who is just like, or you think you can really compare it to is the Cowboys in the NFL. And, Jerry Jones has a lot of money. Jerry Jones spends a lot of money. And if you see what he's done on that, he hasn't got the return on investment as far as championships, but he has got the return on investment as far as value for his franchise and growing the base of Cowboys fans throughout the country. The Cowboy fan base is just large. If you're in a room with 20 people, I think probably two of them, you could be in a room with 20 random people, two of them are going to be Cowboys fans. I don't care where you are in this country. If you're in the room with 20 people, two of them are probably Cowboys fans. And I think that's because of Jerry Jones's diligence, what he spent creating Jerry's world, paying for top players. They always get someone excited, always bringing someone in. And, for the Lakers, that's a family business, obviously, the Buss family, but then they don't have the money like that. So, they went cheap on Caruso. And I know a lot of people are blaming LeBron and AD and saying, hey, you guys made this bed, you should sleep in it. But I don't think they made the decision not to resign Caruso. They could have done that. The Lakers just didn't want to pay the tax. They're in a far better place today if they have Alex Caruso. Then you're just talking about adding one more player. And then, the on-off splits with Caruso on with LeBron and Anthony Davis, the numbers for the stat nerds are tremendous. I don't have the number on the top of my head, but it was crazy. It was like 120 per 100 possession, which is like a crazy, crazy number. So LeBron saying that is interesting. This is next year is going to be the last year of his deal. And when he was asked at the press conference by a reporter, like, how are you going to shepherd the legacy of LeBron James? And Brian Windhorst said this in a different podcast, but I think if you have one of these comments, a LeBron, a KD, looks like Joel Embiid is turned to that type of player. Steph Curry. I think it's your job as a GM to make sure that this person has an opportunity to win every year. It's a shame that if that person doesn't win a title that year, especially LeBron, who I think is the greatest player of all time, for you to put together a team that that probably can't win it all and just say, hey, we're going to kick the can down to next year. There is no next year. There's only right now. It's the Lakers. Like, if they make a bad cap move, if they make a bad draft pick, people are always going to want to come to the Lakers. But there was a time with the dysfunction during the end of the Kobe Bryant era that a lot of free agents shied away from the Lakers, and LeBron was the catalyst to bring back, the days of future past, so to speak, of, when the Lakers were winning titles. So I think it's really interesting to see LeBron make those comments about GMs going for it all. And, I don't know. maybe there's a larger plan. What I always wanted was a special, like a Hard Knocks, but just following GMs, because there's always this, oh no, that wasn't the trade. This was the trade. No, I offered this and that person offered that. And then years later, it comes out that, oh no, it wasn't this, it was that. I think that they should have the NBA, in particular, the NFL, they don't really do trades, but the NBA should have like a Hard Knock style thing where maybe they release it like it's 2 years behind. Because even I would still watch it. I would like to know what actually happened. And it just follows GMs. We get to hear some of the trade calls. Each GM after each call gets to break down their thoughts on why they're doing it or why they're not. I would love something like that. And I'm sure the NBA might be resistant, but I mean, this is what everybody loves. They love the transaction. So I think they need to kind of play into that. All right. CB3 indicates he might miss some time with a thumb. He hurt his hand, not the last day of the season, but the game before that versus the Rockets. I think he was ejected and he was grabbing his hand. And he's had a lot of hand injuries. He had left wrist surgery. If you remember last year, his left hand was bothering him in the whole playoffs. Had surgery that was unbeknownst to everyone that they announced finally a couple of weeks back. So hopefully this isn't too serious. They have the best record in the NBA, I think, by a pretty wide margin. 40, yeah, by a pretty wide margin. They are, the next team behind them is 7 games back. So, he definitely was in the MVP conversation. Part of the reasons the Suns don't have an MVP choice because there's no one that is a clear leader. Devin Booker's their leading scorer, but Chris Paul leads the league in assists. So a sneaky backdrop of this, it might be that Devin Booker puts himself in the MVP race. And so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with that. It'd be very interesting to see if he misses an extreme amount of time. But I don't think so. He's at the All-Star game. So if it was like a torn ligament or something like that, he would have gotten surgery by now. It's probably just bruised, but I don't know why he would want to be there for the festivities. But they're honoring the top 75 players of all time. So maybe that's why he's there to speak to the media, and he probably won't play in tomorrow's game. So we'll see about that. Levine says that he is feeling better after treatment on his knee. That's big. The Bulls still have the #1 record out East. All-Star game is starting a little bit later this year, so it looks like they have a good chance finishing with the #1 seed. And if they do, I mean, they're going to be a tough out if they can get Caruso on ball back and Patrick Williams back in time, the way that DeRozan's playing. So, and then the last thing, MVP on the MVP of the league discussion. Joel Embiid said that his play speaks for itself. I think he does. I think he's the clear-cut MVP. A lot of people are talking about Jokic. I like the Joker, but to me, what frustrates me about the NBA media is that they don't really keep it's hard to argue with them because what they say matters this time doesn't matter the next time. So a big knock on James Harden from a lot of NBA media was that he dribbles too much, he doesn't defend. But they love Luka, who dribbles too much and doesn't defend. And before, in MVP discussions, they would say, okay, if 2 players are playing great offensively, who is playing better defensively? That should be the separating factor. Naked eye test. Joel Embiid he's probably the best defender in the NBA, right? Naked eye test. So if that's the case, then he should be the clear-cut MVP. But every day I hear people arguing for Jokic. And, which is fine. You can argue for that, but it just seems like the goalpost move when you like a player and when you don't like a player. That's what it seems like to me, the goalpost move. Naked eye test, they're not the same defender. one is far superior than the other. So I think that it definitely should be MVP Embiid season, but we'll see. I think that they did a straw poll. Tim Pontep's ESPN reporter, and Embiid was the slight favorite. I mean, he had a dominant performance versus the Bucks with the number 3 guy and Giannis. So we'll see. I think he probably get it, but we'll see how Harden comes in. Is it going to be hard for them to mesh? Are they going to lose some games with him coming in? And the Nuggets, I wouldn't be surprised if Murray and Michael Porter Jr. are playing right after the All-Star break. I think that they've been shooting and getting in pretty strenuous workouts. They've been kind of mum on their return. And this is like, I think, a Pacific Northwest theme, that their teams don't get covered like that. So, that's a big theme in the NBA. And I mentioned when I read, I think it was last week, that their GM said that they'll probably be back sooner than later. I put in a bet on the Nuggets to win the West. I think that they're definitely a threat if those guys come back sooner or later, because they're not going to need the time to gel like Ben Simmons coming to Brooklyn. Like, these guys all have played with each other. They know what it is. So that's just interesting there to look at. So, all right, I'll go ahead and leave it there. Some videos going to be dropping soon. Thank you for supporting. Game is a game.
So what's up, man? What's up with you otherwise, The game is a game. Always.